Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're just getting organized here. I'm just checking to see if we have everybody that we're expecting on the call. I see all of our counselors and yeah, it looks like we're we're all ready to go. So I will call the meeting to order, and we'll start as we usually do with the playing of the national anthem. I'll now read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. Thank you. Next, I will ask the councilors if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare or disclose. Okay, hearing none. Let the record show that none was declared. So next, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Gorham Matthews. The resolution is that the agenda for this meeting be adopted as presented, excuse me, as presented, with the addition of correspondence by email from Elizabeth McPhee, Jill Langford, and Richie McPhee regarding agenda item 8.1, the consent application, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So that's our agenda as we have it. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to this being the agenda? All right, thank you. That's approved. Now, there are some matters arising from the closed session that we held before the supper hour. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 15th, 2022?
I'll
Need a
make
mover?
the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gorham Matthews, seconded by
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McKeon, seconds. Any objection to this motion? Okay, thank you. That's carried. And then item 3.2. I need a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the following volunteers to be appointed to the Thrift Shop Committee. Their names are Ingrid Brooks, June Lockwood, and Julie Porchak. Who would
I'll
like
make
to
the
move that?
motion, Counselor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Any objection to this motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the proper name is Jane Lockwood, not June Lockwood.
I'm sorry, you are absolutely right, sir. I'm reading what's in front of me without thinking about it. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Are you okay to approve that motion? Any objection? Okay, thank you. So the next couple of items we had are planning items for which our practice is to move into committee of the whole. Could I get a motion, please, to move into committee of the whole to consider these three items, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3?
I'll move Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, we are in committee of the whole at 6:40 PM. All right, so sorry, I'm just looking for the particular items that we have. Here they are. Item 8.1 is an application by the Greenwoods, consent application. And we have a memorandum from the Secretary of the Planning Board, John Jackson. John is on the call. John, would you like to introduce this one?
Thank you, Mayor Carmen, Council. Good evening. The application by the Greenwoods is to create 3 new lots along a parcel of land between Wilson and Whitestone Lake in the South Basin to be accessed by a right of way. The proposed newly created lots will be subject to the minimum set out in the bylaw for the municipality, which are achieved by the size and frontages of these lots. There is a suspected fishery issue along one of the shorelines, but only suspected because the air photo that we have that illustrates the shoreline shows it to be more or less clear of any aquatic vegetation. But we've made that a condition, and the Greenwoods are aware of it. Late in the day, or at least yesterday, we received a submission by the neighboring property owner to the west of the subject lands that has an existing right-of-way through the property that they were concerned about relocating the right-of-way, and more or less indicated they weren't in support of any adjustment to the right-of-way. We followed this up with the applicants. They were of the understanding that the proposed relocated right-of-way was something that would be supported by the neighbors, but what they've decided to do is leave the right-of-way in place so that it is not an issue. It's not a perfect scenario for retained lot A is indicated on the materials, but they're going to proceed and not tamper with those rights so that the neighbors' concern at this juncture is not going to come into play. So if there's any questions, Your Worship, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Can I'll open it up to questions from councilors or comments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with the property. It's down my neck of the woods, I guess. And I'm supportive of this application. So I just want to make sure there's a few things that are clear. I noticed on the call, I think Elizabeth McPhee is on it, and I did think I saw Jill Langford on it, as is hopefully Mr. Greenwood. So when we're in the committee of the whole, I think I'm not out of place by saying if you people want to say anything, that you're free to do so. So my first question, John, and I just have a few questions, is did notice go out on this to the neighboring people like the McPhees and the Langfords, et cetera? Were they sent notice, or is it premature or what?
The notices were going to be sent out, and they will be. One of the things that happened was that a number of other applications for this month's planning board fell through because commenting municipalities never got their materials in. So we withheld notice until we can catch up. So this is likely going to suffer the delay of a month before it goes to a planning board meeting, because we just don't have enough returns from commenting agencies. So notice will go out probably within a week or two for not the March meeting, but the April meeting council.
Oh, okay, so they will get notice. So what are we doing tonight if they haven't gotten notice? Are we just agreeing in principle to this, or?
It's up to council. I think that the facts are all more or less before the municipality, and the attendant conditions to the resolution are still going to, I think, be valid. We have responded to the concern of the neighbors that do not wish to have the right-of-way tampered with, and that can be accommodated in one of two different ways: just leave it as is, so to speak, or allow the applicants to open up a dialogue with the neighbors to see if they do wish to entertain an adjustment. But the fact that they may not is not fatal to the application.
But I would say that we would need to redo the motion at least, right? Which talks about the right of way. I think we need to be specific that the right of way, this right of way, I think was established in 1937 by Jim McPhee's father. And so this goes way back. I think we have to redo the motion to ensure that the current right of way is enshrined. Now, if the parties after decide to change it, that's up to them, I guess. But I would like to see, of course, that. And I don't think Mr. Greenwood has a problem with that, according to his email today. So I think that right of way issue should be solved as long as we, adjust the motion accordingly. All the supporting documents, et cetera, I don't know whether they have to be changed or not. That I'll leave that up to you. The final comment that I'll make, the biologist, all the biologist is doing is looking at the shoreline to see where best to put a floating dock. Is that, am I correct in saying that, or?
I think that's a fair characterization. They will refine what is critical habitat in contrast to non-critical habitat. And that's why our band on one of the lots is probably in need of that kind of refinement. So that's fair. I think the only thing we need to do for the application is to alter the sketch so it doesn't show a realigned right of way at this particular time because of what the submission of the neighbors has presented. So that would be the only change of any consequence.
Well, I think we need to enshrine the current right of way as it sits. I think all the parties are in agreement, right? Shouldn't we say that in the motion?
The right of way is a registered legal entitlement that doesn't need any further enshrinement than exists, so that the only way that the right of way could be altered is if the entitlement to it by the neighbors were to agree to relocate it. So that would never be taken away unless they agreed to have it removed. So
okay,
it already is enshrined.
Okay, that's sufficient for me. And again, I'll be supporting this, and that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just, okay, well, Councillor McEwen, you go ahead and.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I support this in principle. We do have owners who are affected by the right of way on the line this evening. I'm concerned that we didn't get the notice out maybe as soon as we had to, whether we needed it necessarily or not. But I'm wondering if there's some merit in giving the McPhees and Greenwood's an opportunity to come to maybe an agreement on this, or maybe agreement is not possible. That's not for me to say, but just wondering if they have comments on this and whether it could be pursued amicably amongst themselves.
All right, well, thank you for that. That's kind of where I was about to go. I wondered if one of the McPhees who is on the call would like to explain what their concern was. I couldn't tell when I saw the letter whether their concern was that they hadn't had an opportunity to discuss this appropriately and thought that the application was kind of getting ahead of them, or if they were opposed in general to what the application was seeking to do, or just what the situation was. So if you would like to, if one of you would like to address this at this point, this would be a good time, and maybe we can understand. The point, of course, was made that this is something that crops up when really crops up at the time when the easements and so on would be registered in the registry office. But I guess if there's going to be a problem of some sort, now's the best time to find out about it before a whole lot of water goes under the bridge, so that we can at least make sure that it is in fact being addressed. So would one of you like to comment, one of the McPhees like to comment about this at this point?
Yeah, thanks. This is Beth McPhee. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the invitation and for the discussion up to this point. I'm speaking for my partners, Richie and Jill, co-owners, and we did have a meeting and a discussion with Mr. Greenwood last fall. And he described the situation. He showed us the property, and we decided we liked the right of way where it is, as traditionally it was laid out. So we didn't accept his proposal to relocate it. Further to that, I'd like to ask a question about the process here. One of them is, does moving a right of way, does it require that the dominant party, which is us, fills out the form, the relocation easement, the form for changing it, as the Ontario Bulletin says, because it looks like it wasn't used in this case, but Mr. Jackson, is it part of the process?
Go ahead, John, you can answer.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, through you. The transaction, if it was amenable to all parties, would occur at the time of registration, where the dominant tenants, which would be the McPhees, would accept the new alignment, and they would quit claim or agree to the dissolving of the former right-of-way. So, and that new right-of-way would require them entering into an affidavit accepting the new right-of-way as part of that. So it'd be bundled up in a kind of a concurrent transaction. But in reality, the beneficiaries of the existing right-of-way are in total control at all times. So it would involve them agreeing to it, having it assigned to their deeds in the new location, but it sounds like that's not in the cards for this particular transaction, that they wish to leave it the way it is, which is fine. It can remain that way, unless that sometime in the future there is agreements amongst the parties to relocate it in some form.
Okay, thank you. So the transfer, release, and abandonment form would have been part of a subsequent stage if we had got there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And also, if I may ask, just while I've got the floor here, further to what Mr. Lamb was asking about the process of the planning. So the notification to the neighbors will be going out later on. That goes out by mail, I presume?
Yes, first class mail.
Okay.
And we would probably, we would post it at the beginning of the Greenwood property in terms of a sign on the land, although I don't believe anyone but the Greenwoods live beyond that location.
I think that's right, yeah. So what would the effect or possible effect of the neighbors review be? I just want to learn about the planning process, if I can, from you. So the neighbors are invited to review the proposal and raise any concerns if they can see any?
Yes, so we are required under the legislation to circulate to all neighbors within 60 meters of the boundary of the Greenwood property, the municipality and a number of other key agencies, and allow them to comment. So if there are concerns, and we haven't even circulated it. We obviously got concerns from yourself and others. So there is still some additional measures to go. So all that are notified and beyond, for that matter, are welcome to comment to the board, who is the decision-making authority on behalf of the municipality.
Okay, thanks. And what's the purpose of this evening's council vote?
We, as a an area planning board, would not want to proceed without getting some kind of official submission by the municipality. So they are a commenting agency, no real different than yourself, but we consider them key because they are, a body that represents interests in a broad way. So we just treat them as the most important neighbor, if you like.
Okay, right. And one more question, again, that Mr. Lamb raised this about the supporting documents that council is looking at, and that I presume will be part of the eventual submission to the planning board. On page 10, the sketch shows a caption that says easement to be released on the south or west end of the right of way. I presume that you could change that sketch and so that it's not the live copy anymore, because the easement is not to be released. So we just didn't want that to go into the record appearing that way.
Yeah, yes, through your worship, that's what I was referring to when Councillor Lamb inquired about what needed to be changed. And really, we would alter the sketch to eliminate any kind of suggestion that the rights of way were going to be realigned, but rather preserved. So we would simply correct that and recirculate it to council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson, and thank you, council and mayor.
Because just before we leave this particular subject, I wonder if I can ask, sorry, I'm talking about the subject of the easement itself, and then I'll get to you, Councillor Gore Matthews. Just, I wonder if I could ask Elizabeth, if the existing easement remains as it is, and there is a separate easement, I suppose, would have to be then provided for the proposed lot 1, I guess, or lots 1 and 2, I'm not sure. As Mr. Greenwood has suggested, if that were to happen, that satisfies your concern, and you don't, are you saying you don't have any other issues with this proposal? Or am I wrong?
Could you repeat what you said? I lost track there.
I apologize. I'm just trying to understand if in fact the easement that you now are the beneficiary of is left in place as it is, and a separate easement is provided for the lots that have the lots that are being severed, that goes somewhere else to deal with them. Are you now, if that's the case, this drawing is redrawn as Mr. Greenwood has suggested, are you okay then with the proposal that he's making, or do you have other concerns that other objections that you have to this?
Based on the current sketch and the current proposal, we don't have other concerns. Our only concern was, well, several concerns, the notification process and the relocation of the right of way. At the moment, that's it. But what we'll do is when the updated package comes out and the neighbor commenting period is, we'll look again. So I'm not saying this is everything right now, but the right-of-way relocation was my one ask for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think what I may end up suggesting to council is that we defer this for until the notifications had gone out. I did not realize when I saw this that they hadn't gone out, but Councillor Gorham Matthews, you asked for an opportunity to comment, so.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, is it possible for under the recommendation number 2 to include that all of the lots be evaluated by the qualified fishery biologist? Just when you look at the commentary in the package, you know, they're basing their comments on a photograph. We've had discussions before about this within the Environment Stewardship Committee, that how can you evaluate whether or not a waterfront area is critical to fish habitat from a photograph. So I think it would be of value, because we're looking at possibly having development of an entire side of a bay here. If each property owner were to get their own evaluation of the use of their shoreland.
Okay, that's kind of, I guess, kind of part 2 of this whole particular item, which is the environmental issues. I don't know, do you have a comment, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, Your Worship, I don't think that's a problem at all. I mean, it's going to be straightforward. I think clean frontage is clean frontage, and they'll be able to come in and do the assessment for the whole shorelines and not just the one that we're concerned about. So I think that's an easy peasy thing to do.
So if I can ask a follow-up question, is there any possibility that as a result of that assessment that they might determine that any of these 3 lots is not suitable for development because of the fact that it really doesn't have a, you know, any length of shoreline that is appropriate for normal development that would take place on a you know, a lakefront lot?
If I can through you, I do not believe so. I'm pretty familiar with the process. I'm pretty familiar with the property, and I have pretty confident level that they would be able to find the adequacy, if you like, of the shoreline to accommodate dock improvements. Worst case scenario, if it was fatal, it would be fatal, and only, for example, 2 of the 3 lots might be created. But I don't sense that here.
Okay, and so if the planning board were ultimately to approve this in principle, and that turned out to be the case, that one of the lots was not developable, what then happens after that? The severance does not go through, or the severance goes through but they can't build on it? What happens?
If there was a fatal condition that couldn't be fulfilled, then that parcel would have to be adjoined with its neighboring parcel.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Okay. Yeah, I've fished down there many times. I agree with Mr. Jackson that I think it's fine. I think, as he said, easy peasy. I don't think there's going to be an issue down there. If there's critical fish habitat, I don't know. I've never caught a fish in there, so even though I've tried several times. So, but anyway, it's not a bad shoreline at all, and I see no problems to development. But of course, I'm not a biologist, so but from the naked eye and from being there on many occasions, I don't see a problem for what that's worth. Thank you.
All right. is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this now, since we've started into this, and then when we come back, we'll, out of committee of the whole, we will pass a motion to deal with it. But right now, is there anyone else? I don't think I see the Greenwoods on the call, but is there anyone else who wishes? to speak
Mr.
to
Mayor,
it?
it's Scott Nash. I have a couple questions if I could, if no other councilors have any questions.
Well, you might as well go ahead. I don't hear any other.
Okay. Just a couple questions. And part of it was brought up just from listening to the call tonight. The notification that normally goes out, I think Mr. Jackson said it's for 28 days. Doesn't that normally go out before it gets to council? So that'd be one of my questions. And the second one would be, has it also gone out to the lake associations? Are you guys doing that or not doing that now? My second question would be, if I'm looking at page 4 and page 5 correctly, is there both type 1 fish habitat, I think on page 4, and on page 5 and in other areas, there's also environmentally protected area? And if I'm correct in that understanding, I believe an ecologist or biologist would have to do a fish review for type 1 fish habitat after the month of June. And I guess the big question I'd have, just because I think it should be on everybody's, if you're doing it, treating everybody equal. If council was to pass something, wouldn't you normally want to know if there's 15 meters of shoreline? And as Mr. Jackson had said and Mr. Lamb, it sounds like there would be 15 meters of shoreline available, but wouldn't it be best to wait, have a biologist go out, confirm that there's 15 meters before something's passed, and then instead of 2 lots, it goes down to 3 lots? If it sounds like it's an easy thing to confirm, I'm wondering if it's like jumping the gun and getting this out right now. And my last question would be, if there is shown environmentally protected area and also a lot of type 1 fish habitat, why would there not be, as a recommendation, a 5126 agreement regarding septic and drainage and overflow, those types of things like you've done on other applications where there's type 1 fish habitat? I know that's kind of 3 or 4 questions all jammed up, but I just wanted to get those asked. Again, I think development is good and great if it's done in the right way. Just asking these questions, that's all.
Okay, thank you. And do you wish to respond, Mr. Jackson?
The issue that we looked at in terms of tabletop data was that we're only dealing with potential fish habitat issues. I do not know of any flags or data that would express an ecological or terrestrial problem here. So what we often do is we often find the broad brush that placed fish habitat typing on the shoreline didn't look at properties very carefully. And what we found was that, in fact, the aerial photography has clearly indicated that there was an excessive amount of shoreline that was placed in a critical fish habitat. So I'm more than confident that it needs the due diligence and it can be refined. And I think for the sake of the whole of the shoreline, because the biologists would be coming down to look at the specific lot that has what appears to be all of its frontage covered by critical fish habitat, might as well look at it all. So I don't see a problem there. The legislation has changed so that we now have 2 years to fulfill those conditions. So the timing is not particularly critical. I'm thinking that with my experience in these areas, the biologists will come down sometime after June 1st when the growing season commences, and he'll be able to give us precisely the data refinement that we've asked for. There were no issues with respect to servicing these properties in terms of having to detail particular design, building septic design issues. So they didn't emerge as a condition in respect to this application. So we would obviously recommend the private road considerations in terms of the kinds of conditions that we want in an agreement. That's being done. But unless the biologists were to place additional kinds of recommendations that might benefit from being included in the agreement, I'm not seeing that in this application. So hopefully those answer Mr. Nash's questions.
Yeah, I think they do, Mr. Jackson. Thanks. I guess based on what you were saying, though, you'd said you'd reviewed the aerial photography. So I guess that photography would have been done after June 1st when it could be seen where the fish habitat would be based on weed growth. And the second question regarding the 5126, I guess if you can just answer why on some applications you require 5126 just regarding shoreline erosion and septic, not septic design requirements, just confirming that septic systems will be installed as per the official plan, along with shoreline erosion following the official plan, and other times you don't, even though there's no reason written up by a biologist. Sometimes it's in some of the plans and sometimes it's not. If you can just answer those two questions, and that's all I'd have. And thank you very much for allowing me to ask the questions this evening.
So in terms of imagery, we have perhaps 4 or 5 years to choose from. Some of them are taken in various times of the year. Some of them are before leaf on, others are with leaf on. So we're confident that we have the data to be able to make that kind of assessment. The issue over whether or not we need design controls for the type of septic system that would benefit from design criteria is becoming less and less because of the knowledge we have about soils in our area that tend to bind the phosphorus nutrient associated with adversely impacting water bodies. So unless there's a true sensitive water body condition, we're not likely to benefit from those kinds of controls. And that would be the case for both these two lakes, which are warm water fisheries. So in general terms, if it was a cold water fishery, you'd probably put those suspenders on belts just for an extra level of control. But I see in the not too distant future that actually falling off the table as well.
Okay, so I'd like to move on to the next item. I didn't hear from Councillor Woods. Did you have any questions or comments you wanted to make before we leave this one?
No, I think everybody's wrapped it up pretty well there. I was just going to ask if the Greenwoods were on the call and maybe they wanted to say something, seeing as it's about them, but I can't see anybody. I'm just going to take your word for it that you don't see them there, Mr. Mayor.
I'll ask one more time, and just in case Ted, you are there, or I see a couple of phone numbers, but
15. Yeah, Ted's on the phone.
do you wish to say anything at this point, Ted?
No, I think everything has been addressed properly this evening. No problems.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, if we could then move on to item 8.2, which is an application for rezoning by James Anderson and Sandra Patterson. And once again, we have a report from our planner. So John, I'll let you Make any introductory comments you'd like?
Yeah, just a follow-up from the public meeting where there were a number of submissions and concerns. The issue was related to possibly having an accessory building permanently in place apart from a principal building. And so with those concerns, we rejigged the bylaw so that the property has to have a principal building within a 3-year time period. After which, if that doesn't occur, then the accessory building component would become unlawful. It's like it never happened. So we've touched base with the applicant. He's happy with that. And so what we've got is a temporary zoning bylaw that is allowed on properties for up to a 3-year period. So we've hopefully responded to the concerns from the discussion at the public meeting last month to handle it in this fashion.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, questions or comments? If you are agreeable with this solution that's being proposed, there is a bylaw in the bylaw section when we get to it, if you wish to approve that. Any comments or questions about this one?
I was kind of hoping someone would go first, but I guess I get used to going first, so I'm gonna talk to it. I don't know that I understand this, but I do know that this property has waterfront. And I do know that as far as I know, that you can't have a building before the principal dwelling. And that's pretty enshrined in our bylaws and zoning and whatever. And the one thing I'm concerned about a couple of things. The precedent that we set. So anyone with a waterfront lot comes forward in the future and says, hey, I want to put a garage up first. I'm going to build a cottage, 3 years out, but I need to have the same thing as Mr. Anderson. Are we now then changing our bylaw and how do we say no to anyone else in the future on this thing? And so that's my one concern. The second concern is, and again, nothing against Mr. Anderson. I'm sure he intends to build, but many a slip between the cup and the lip over 3 years, and for some reason he can't. And we say, well, we can, it's unlawful. We take them to court. Well, we know in the municipality, take anyone to court costs the municipality thousands and thousands of dollars. You just don't show up one day and say whatever. So, I feel uncomfortable with saying if he doesn't fulfill that, we'll just, take him to court. This whole thing in my mind, I just feel very uncomfortable with, and I think it sets a really bad precedent, unless I'm missing something here. I also think that council in this case sort of appears to be the bad guy. Mr. Jackson gets involved and talks to Mr. Anderson, and the application comes forward. And I like John; he's a professional, good guy. But like if we turn this thing down, we're the bad guys, right? This is very much an exception, and I feel uncomfortable with it. And the last question I have is, the subject says proposed rezoning. What are we rezoning? It's waterfront. What are we rezoning to some sort of exception or something? Anyway, please alleviate my concerns in this matter. And again, it's nothing against Mr. Anderson. I guess he's got a steel building of 1,500 square feet. And well, I'll go on. Why would he just put a building up with bedrooms upstairs and put a septic in and call his garage a home, and then you don't have to build anything? Then he's not breaking any rules, right? So anyway, please help me Mr. Jackson.
Um,
Go ahead,
Certainly.
John.
The application is site specific, so it doesn't really form a precedent of really any consequence. We have actually entertained applications for other property situations that an owner wished for a storage building, like if they were on a rural property and wanted a building put up before there was a residence for things like snowmobiles or boat storage, etc. So I don't see the precedent particularly being that critical. And I think that the commitment by Mr. Anderson was simply to build a building. He's going to build a home on the property, but the timing for him was better if he had a place to store some of his equipment and convenience him in that fashion. So he's only allowed one dwelling. His property is about 100 acres with 50 of it zoned waterfront and 50 of it zoned rural, but operationally it's the waterfront that makes him eligible for building a home on it in the first place. Otherwise it would have been considered a backlot. So I think what we tried to do here to a certain extent is take a reasonable ground to say, look, the council is concerned you're trying to backdoor a non-residential use, so you have to put up a building within 3 years or you lose the zoning rights. And well, I appreciate that that kind of enforcement brings with it the attendant costs that may occur, but that happens when you enforce any bylaw, particularly zoning. But it's a very serious contravention if you were to have a zoning contravention contrary to a barking dog or something. It's a very, very serious consequence. So I see that as much an incentive as anything in terms of the enforcement. So
So one final question then, Mr. Jackson, could we put in the motion that should he not build the building within 3 years, that the municipality has the right to take the building down and charge him the costs for doing it?
That's actually an intrinsic part of the process, because let's say fast forward
But
3
I'm
years.
talking about building it into the motion, so it's right up front now, and therefore we just do it. You don't have to go to court and go through costing the municipality thousands of dollars. Like, just put it in the motion. You're going to build, and if you don't build, we'll rip the building down. That's an incentive in itself.
But in fact, operationally, that's what would occur, is that if we fast forward 3 years from now and that zoning rights that he got, should council pass the bylaw, be gone, disappeared, that's the same as anybody building a building unlawfully. So that,
Okay, so you have no objection to us specifically putting that in?
yeah, I just don't know that it really adds much, but that's all.
Well, it adds stuff. It adds stuff to me.
Well,
And to the public.
I'm just not thinking of the real value added to that.
What,
because-
don't you like the bluntness of that? Is that what your problem is?
No, I'm just trying to think of the authority. We act within authorities, and if you have a violation of a bylaw, in this case, a zoning bylaw, that operation has a certain sequence of events. I don't know if you would gain much by adding the motion. I suppose it may not hurt. It's stating the obvious, if that's a better way to put it.
Good. I like the obvious.
I think the reality is that if you were to get to that particular point in time that you've contemplated, the municipality would not, and any lawyer would advise against doing this, because simply going and taking down somebody's building. You would end up going to court and getting a ruling on it. And if you tried to take the matter into your own hands, then the individual who owned the building would probably go to court and stop you, right? So it's not, the enforcement of that provision and the eventuality, regardless of how it's, whether it's expressed simply by the bylaw or by putting something in a motion that we're going to do after all, to recommend to the planning board, it's not going to make any difference to the outcome at the end of the day. If he decides not to, if for whatever reason he can't do can't honor his commitment or chooses not to, the municipality is going to incur some costs to enforce it. So
I hear you.
anyway, Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes, I'm just curious, how does this not slip through the cracks in 3 years? Who is it, our building department, or is it the planning board? I'm just thinking in 3 years' time, who's going to remember that this lot isn't just supposed to have a garage on it? I'm just wondering, I'm not gonna remember in 3 years. I'm wondering who is responsible for making sure that this doesn't get pulled over on us is my question.
Good question. I don't know if our clerk has an answer for that.
The only thing I could offer, Your Worship, for Councillor Beth, is that it would be in the roll file, and the entitlement expires. The sunset clause will be 3 years after it's adopted. So that would be probably no different than someone putting up a unlawful use on any given day. That's what happens that day, and they are subject to prosecution if that's the case. But I got the sense that Mr. Anderson was very sincere about proceeding to make sure a house is built based on the timing that he talked about. He doesn't want to be in violation of our zoning bylaw, nor should anybody want to be in that position.
Madam CAO, do you have any comment on how we would, do we have any mechanism to bring the file forward in 3 years to see if the obligation has been discharged or not?
Well, there's a couple of things we do now. We track agreements. That's a fairly new process, and we've actually gone back to 2000, and we track agreements. Some of them are in perpetuity, some of them for 3 years, and we try to make sure we're on top of that. I would think that there probably needs to be a 2-year look at it. So if he is going to commence construction and build a house or apply for a building permit, he's not going to do it the day before year 3. So there will probably need to be a conversation with him, and I would assign this to the building official, have him put it in his calendar, but also from the clerk's department perspective, we'll track it as we would an agreement. And you're right, these things do get easily missed. Just putting something in the property file by no means ensures that someone is going to look in that property file and remember it. So we'll have to create some sort of a mechanism to be sure that at the end of year 2, we start looking and perhaps having a conversation with this gentleman about his intentions.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor McEwen, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, when I first saw this, I was concerned, thinking, okay, back lot, is it setting precedent? A number of factors, and I think most of us can cover it off. But in terms of setting precedent, we do this on a fairly regular basis. We allow someone in 3 years to have a site-specific unit on a property while they're building. So had he not been on waterfront at some point on his property, that would have been the one stroke against him. It would have been a back lot scenario. So then we would have went into the other rules and situations. So anyway, I don't think we're setting such a precedent as we might feel we are. And if it's not properly followed and tracked, then I think that's the most important aspect of it. I do hear Councillor Lamb's concerns and Councillor Matthews also. But I think in principle, I finally came around to agreeing with this, that it is not setting sufficient precedent. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
any
Mayor?
other?
Yeah, I'll just make a brief another comment. I don't want in any way to for anyone to think that I don't think Mr. Anderson will put a building up. That isn't my concern. My concern is John says, well, it's not particularly a precedent, but someone calls me next week and says, hey, I've got a waterfront lot, I'm going to build. I understand you did this for Mr. Anderson. How about I put a garage up and I promise to put a building up within 3 years? What do I say to that individual? Go, just go forward and it's now, that's the new rule. I'm not sure at the end of the day that it makes that much difference, but it is, kind of a change. Where people are used to putting a trailer or a very small accessory building while they build, and this is a change. And maybe I'm missing the point here, but that's my main concern. So, but anyway, thank you. I'm done speaking on it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other comment on this particular one?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councillor Woods.
Go ahead, Councillor Woods.
A quick question for John, and then I got a comment to make. So if this lot wasn't waterfront, it had year-round road access, say on the side of one of the highways or one of our municipally maintained roads, and it was a vacant lot, could someone apply for a 1,500 square foot garage and then promise to build within 3 years, and that would be okay?
Every scenario is slightly different. For example, if this was a rural property and the function of the building was barn-like, so you might interpret the bylaw to allow for this not as an accessory structure, but as a principal one if there was an agricultural use, for example. I do not believe that this has any kind of rural connotation to it, so that interpretation couldn't have been made. But there are circumstances where, for example, all that's on a rural property is a barn and there isn't a farmhouse on it. So that's where the barn is a principal use and is allowed to proceed. But this is not the case in this situation.
So if it was a rural property and it was designated as a managed forest, then you could build a barn on it, no problem, and you wouldn't have to build a principal dwelling. Is that what you're telling me?
If one could interpret that the use was a legitimate principal use that was allowed in a rural zone, but that's not the circumstance here, I would submit.
Okay. I did manage to talk to Mr. Anderson for a few minutes today before our meeting started. And I asked him, do you have true intentions of building a place? And he said, I absolutely have true intentions. He wants the shop to store some of his tools, and he wants to build a little house for his son. His son's going to mill some lumber, like most of us, well, a lot of us do up here, with a little sawmill, and he's going to harvest some firewood for his property, as well as the house here when it gets built for his son. I just wanted to let everyone know that I spoke to him, and that's the answer that he gave me when I talked to him about it today.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, I'd like to move on to 8.3, which is an application from the Millers for a consent application. This is off Beaver Dam Road. I believe that the issue really, this was before us once before already, and I believe that the issue was whether or not the MTO was okay with what they wanted to do in terms of entrance to Highway 124. So once again, John, do you want to comment on what we have in the file now, please?
Yeah, the MTO did respond, and as long as the access is off Beaver Dam Trail Road or Beaver Dam Road, MTO was fine with the proposal.
So there's no reason for you're saying, in essence, there's no reason that this not go through this time. Is that
Correct.
correct? Once again, any comments or questions from councillors? All right. It sounds like that one is okay. So then, if that's the case, we can reconvene to regular council meeting and then start to pick up the resolutions from what we've been discussing. But I get a mover and seconder to reconvene to regular council, please.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Wood, seconded by
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
all right, thank you, Councillor McEwen. Any discussion? It's 7:39 p.m. And we are back in regular session. Thank you, everybody. So the first item was the application from Mr. Greenwood, and my suggestion to council is that we have a motion to defer this until such a time as the application has been circularized to all the people who should have been. If I had realized that that had not been done, I would have asked this item to be removed from the agenda for tonight, but nevertheless, we did have, I think the discussion was useful in that it would probably result in something slightly different being brought back to us for our recommendation at the next meeting. So, but if I'm interpreting correctly the wish of council, could I get a mover and seconder that this be deferred, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews. Is there a seconder?
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Yeah. So. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we've deferred it, and I will just make a note to the effect that it is deferred pending circulation to neighbors. Okay. There's no opposition to that motion? Okay, it'll come back and probably the conditions attached to it will be modified slightly, I'm guessing. The second one was the Andersons. Sorry, that one is, we have a bylaw for that, so we'll wait till we get to the bylaws. And the last one is the Miller one with the with the with the rezoning for 3 years to accommodate the storage building. I'll read a motion and see if we can that is to that effect, and see if we have a mover and seconder. Whereas John Jackson Planner has prepared a report dated February 3rd for the Prairie Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B03-2022 W Miller, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives this report of information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone recommends this consent application for approval in principle, subject to the following conditions. 1, that payment of a parkland dedication fee be made in accordance with the current municipal fees and charges by law. 2, that the new lots receive 911 addressing from the municipality. 3, that payment of all applicable planning fees be made to the municipality of Whitestone. Those are the conditions.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just make,
Mr. Mayor, can I comment? Sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
I thought there was a condition of responsibility and such for the road maintenance. Is it a 51-26 agreement, such thing? That's the one off the highway, is that correct, Noah?
This is the Beaver
Oh.
Dam Road one.
Yeah, it's on a private road, so I thought we had an understanding that there would be an agreement. I believe it's 51-26,
Mhm.
assuming responsibility for the road.
Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor McEwen is thinking of the ones, that set of 4 lots, the 2 that were off of Moore Drive and then the 2 off of the 124. When we were talking about that at the planning board, we didn't make that a condition that those 2 lots off the 124 were going to contribute to cost towards the private road. But in this case, the people that own the 2 lots off of the 124 own Beaver Dam Road. So that's not really necessary in this case.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not confused on the locations because we're going into the back of these lots on a private road. I thought that same condition would be put in place.
Yeah, I wonder if have we lost John Jackson? It looks like we have. Madam CAO, is that you read the situation?
Yes, he seems to have left.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we amend that to include a 51-26 agreement, which is making the future owners responsible for their portion of that road.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, if I could jump in.
Go ahead.
Councillor McEwen is correct. So the
Yeah.
reason this consent application is before council tonight is because when it was dealt with on February 15th, because we were in a bit of a rush and things were moving fairly quickly, council actually voted on it, but there was no mover and seconder. So I was uncomfortable with that process not being followed. So it's back before council today. And you're right, on the February 15th, if we look in the February 15th minutes, there is an item 4 which says the applicant enter into a section 51-26 agreement with the municipality to be registered on title. So that actually was missed on this motion, and it should be there. So I would suggest we could add that in. We actually have a mover and seconder this time around, and we can add item 4 to reflect the 51-26 agreement as written in the minutes and as was intended.
Thank you, because when I heard what Councillor McEwen was asking, that same question came to my mind, was why would it not apply in this particular case? These lots are going to be sold, presumably, and then we're leaving kind of open-ended. Yeah, they have a right of way, but the question is there any, what's the mechanism for them to contribute to the cost of the road to avoid getting into some sort of a dispute at some point in the future between the owners of the road and the owners of the lot? So two questions for you, Madam CAO. First of all, were there, if you go back to that February meeting, were there any other conditions that we added, or was it just number 4?
I should unmute before I talk. It was just number 4, the payment of the parkland dedication fee, the 911 addressing, payment of all planning fees, and then number 4 being the
And could you-
applicant entered into a 5126
Could
agreement.
you read the text of it so I can capture it here? It says that the applicants enter into a 5126 agreement.
With the
What?
municipality
Okay,
to be registered on title to the effect that the
hang
owner.
on.
Oh,
With the municipality to be registered on title. Sorry, to the effect that,
That the owners of the severed lots recognize that access is by private right of way.
that the owners of the severed lots recognize that access is by private right of way. I got that? Right of way. All right. So that, I have added that condition to the motion. Mover and seconder, are you okay with this motion as amended?
I am.
Councillor Woods?
I just have one quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I know we're creating new lots and they're coming off of a private road because the MTO won't give them access straight off the highway. But please correct me if I'm wrong, but Councillor McEwen, I thought I heard him say that, you know, we're getting them to sign the 5126 agreement so that they know that they have to contribute to the maintenance of the road. And it's a private road. We don't ever do that, do we? Like, if
Well, I
someone's
don't-
gonna have a lot on a private road, we don't make them contribute, right? Because, I mean, to me, on this picture, and it's, you know, it's tiny. I mean, you all have the same package I have. All of those waterfront lots, do they have to put in to maintain that road? Because we're gonna, is that the condition that we're gonna put on these 2 new lots?
Mr. Mayor,
No,
Just
no,
a question.
It's just that they were, I don't think that's great. It's just that they recognize that it is
Yeah.
a
Okay.
private
now,
right
I'm-
away,
I'm
so
fine
that
with
they don't, so that they don't come back to the municipality and try to drag the municipality into solving their collective road maintenance problem, right?
No problem. I'm good with that,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I mean, it might be a very good idea that all of those folks who are serviced by that road would get together and have some arrangement whereby they share the maintenance costs. And I'm certain that we as a municipality would encourage that, but we haven't made anybody else do it.
that's
Any of
correct.
the other parties do it so far, so I'm not sure that we're gonna rearrange the whole thing on by this motion. Any other comments or concerns? Councillor Gorman Matthews.
Yeah, just so I'm clear, is this going back to the planning board now? Because this was part of the planning board agenda last month, and I'm pretty sure it passed. And now we're changing the conditions. So does it, what we passed last month isn't valid anymore and it's going
Well,
back to be
I-
looked at again?
I don't think we are changing the conditions because, and I'm sorry, I forgot, I wish that Madam CIO, that you'd mentioned first, that reminded me why this was here. But we added the condition back before. The motion was reported in the minutes, but without a mover and seconder. And the planning board, I take it from what you're saying, Councillor Gorham Matthews, approved it on the basis of the fact that we recommended it. And we had this item 4 in the motion, in the recommendation to the planning board. So I'm assuming that the planning board added it in when they approved it, right? Can you tell? Do you have an easy way of telling?
I
Yeah.
have to go back and look at our package, but I don't remember this being here.
Mr. Mayor, I do remember being there, actually, for my memory.
It was there? Okay.
I'm certain it was.
It was in our minutes, so it should have been in front of the planning board.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it's Michelle Henry, we did notify the planning board of council's intention because council voted on it and it was carried technically. Well, it was, you said carried. It's just that there was no mover and seconder. So we shared this resolution with the planning board. So I'm guessing they saw the 4 conditions, which we will double check with.
Anyway, if you approved it without item 4, then it's gone, and this is, we've been wasting our time here, I'm afraid, but however, that's, anyway. Can I just call, if you don't mind, can I just call the question? This is really just to regularize our minutes so that we have a mover and seconder for what we said at the time. So is there anyone opposed to this? Anyone want a recorded vote or anything? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to say that motion is carried. And anyway, I apologize for the confusion. It wasn't. So we're at item 10 in the agenda, which is our consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of the regular council meeting minutes for February 15th, the special council meeting minutes for February 22nd, and the minutes of the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting on February 2nd. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the council meeting minutes of February 15th, 2022 and February 22nd, 2022, and receives for information all other items contained in the consent agenda dated March 15th, 2022. Could I get a mover and seconder for this, please?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move it. I have one item I'd like to pull from the Stewardship Committee minutes, if we could discuss it for a minute.
All right, well, I guess if you want to, and you want to amend the minutes and then we'll approve it under consent, or is that what you want to do?
No, I don't want to amend the minutes. I just want to discuss something in the consent agenda.
Okay, there
I
is
don't want to
there is a matters arising from the consent agenda, so you can
Okay.
you can speak to it afterwards, but is there something that's not
Yes.
correct in what we're approving or receiving? I guess that's what I'm.
No, I just want to speak to something.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, you'll have a chance to do that in just a second. Please bear with me. So, sorry, I thought I heard a mover. Was somebody
moved, Councilor McEwen.
Councilor McEwen, seconded by?
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councilor Lamb. All right. Is there any discussion or any objection to this motion? All right, the consent agenda has been approved, and now matters arising from the consent agenda. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Thank you. I just wanted to discuss, when you're reading through the minutes, there's a picture of a sign that says clean, drain, dry your boat. I'll just hold it up to remind everyone. So we'd like to put these signs at the public landings. We have that list from during COVID when we were discussing landings and marinas and such. We can get these signs free. Ian Crawford can get us the signs from FOCA, and it's all part of the new Invasive Species Act that is regulating clean boats, that you have to clean your boat before you launch it into the water or move it from one body to another body of water. So we just wanted to make council aware that we were going to be putting up these signs and make sure nobody has any disagreement with that. And at the same time, the suggestion was made that we should have littering signs, like signs reminding people, if they're not already present at all of our boat launches, that to take what you bring in out with you, just to remind people that messaging. So those two signs we'd like to see at the boat launches.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments? You can get these signs laminated, you said, and put them at all our landings?
They're plastic sign. They're already made, and we can get them for free. And they'll just reinforce the message that the MRF is going to be enforcing this summer.
Okay. Any comments or questions about that? I'm assuming nobody has any objection to putting those signs there. I certainly don't. All right. Thank you. Accounts payable. Would someone like to move, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approve accounts payable in the amount of $250,919.28 and payroll in the amount of $65,023.32.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank
I'll
you.
second
Councillor.
Councillor Lamb.
All right, moved by Councillor Woods, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion about the payables? Questions about payables? Sounds like there aren't. Would you like to call the roll for the vote, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. So, that takes us to bylaws. Sorry, just trying to make sure here that I haven't missed anything along the way. So this particular bylaw is the I'm sorry, this one is Anderson and Patterson This is the one that we talked about before with the garage building. So I'm going to, I'm going to read it to you and then we'll see if we got a mover and seconder. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has the authority to enact zoning bylaws under Section 34 of the Planning Act. And whereas the owner of the lands located in part of Lot 32, Concession 1 in the geographic township of Mackenzie, accessed by Dubois Trail, has applied to rezone his lands to permit the construction of a shop/storage building on the property in advance of any principal use, like a dwelling. And whereas Section 39 of the Planning Act allows for the enactment of a temporary use bylaw for up to 3 years, after which the authorized use must be removed or the land brought into compliance with the bylaw, and the provisions of Section 34(9) shall not apply. And whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone deems it appropriate to rezone the subject land, now therefore, the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby enacts as follows. That Schedule 7 of Zoning Bylaw 07-2018 as amended is hereby further amended by rezoning part of Lot 32, Concession 1, located in the geographic township of Mackenzie from the rural RU zone to the rural zone exception number RU-8, as shown on a copy of part of Schedule 7 attached to this bylaw as Schedule 1, and more particularly shown on a copy of Reference Plan 42R-9793 attached to this bylaw as Schedule 2. That Section 4.04 of Zoning Bylaw 07-2018 as amended, Special Exception Regulations, Rural RU Zone as amended, is hereby further amended by adding the following paragraph after Section 4.04.7. And the paragraph is 4.04.8. And it reads as follows: a garage storage building up to 150 square meters may be permitted on part of Lot 32, Concession 1 in the geographic township of Mackenzie, subject to a minimum setback from Dubois Trail of 20 meters and all other applicable requirements for the rural zone for a period of 3 years from the date of passage of this bylaw. On February 15th, 2025, special exception number 4.04.8 will no longer be in force and effect, and the lands will be subject to the provisions of the zoning bylaw as if the exception RU 4.04.8 was never in place. Upon the expiry of this date, the provision of Section 34 sub 9 shall not apply. That this bylaw be read a first and second time this 15th day of March 2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 15th day of March 2022 and numbered bylaw 16-2022. And you have a copy of the bylaw in your package. So is there a mover and seconder for this bylaw?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman Matthews. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would suggest that we move the date from February 15th to March the 15th in the last paragraph. If he has 3 years, don't make it from February. It says from the date that we passed it, which is tonight. Isn't that right, or have I got it wrong? So it's on February 15th.
Yes, I see exactly what you mean. Do you have any comment on this, Madam CEO Clerk? And is there any reason we shouldn't just change this? Or does that require the bylaw to be changed? I'd have to dig down and pull the bylaw out to see.
We can make an administrative amendment to that, and we'd be agreeable to March 15th. Thank you.
So on March 15th, thank you, Councillor Lamb. That's a good idea. Give them benefit of the month, I guess. All right, so are there any other comments about this? Are you ready for the question? If so, I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes,
Councillor McEwen,
You're muted, Councillor McEwen.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie,
Yes.
thank you. That motion is carried.
All right, thank you. Item 12.2. This is a bylaw for the regulating of dogs within the municipality of Whitestone. And I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the following, that bylaw 17-2022 being a bylaw for the regulating of dogs within the municipality of Whitestone, and to repeal bylaw 42-2005, that's the old bylaw, dog bylaw, be read a first and second time this 15th day of March 2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 15th day of March 2022, and numbered bylaw 17-2022. And you have the bylaw with the latest amendments to it in red, so you can, in your package. Can I get a mover and seconder?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any discussion on this one?
Just a comment, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead.
This has, been a bit of a long and drawn out process from me wanting a leash requirement to looking at the bylaw and finding that it was truly outdated, and has been modernized, and with the input of several people and the community. And I think what's the result of this is a really good bylaw. So I'm happy to make the motion to approve it. I think we've covered off most, if not everything. And again, I think it's a good bylaw and some good work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Gorham Matthews.
I would agree with Councillor Lamb that we received a lot of good feedback from the community and the public, and the different versions that we've seen of this. And I think what they've come up with is something that is fair and everyone can live with. So thank you to everyone that plugged away at this.
Okay. Anybody else? Are you ready for the question then? If so, I will ask the clerk to call the roll for the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes,
Councillor McEwen,
Yes,
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Thank you. That brings us to item 12.3, which is a bylaw that hope you will be happy to approve. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw 18-2022, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation for the purposes of receiving funding for the expansion of the nurse practitioner-led clinic building in the municipality of Whitestone, be read a first and second time this 15th day of March 2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 15th day of March 2022, and numbered bylaw 18-2022. And a mover and seconder for that, please.
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any discussion about this one? I'm assuming that some of you are aware that the official announcement of this funding is taking place on Thursday. But it's very exciting news, of course. Significant amount of money towards this project. All right, I'll if there are no further comments, I will ask our CAO or our clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Conry.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
And item 12.4. Another one that I'm sure folks will be happy about. They get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 19-2022, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale with Donald Richard Franklin, be read a first and second time this 15th day of March 2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 15th day of March 2022, and numbered bylaw 19-2022.
I'll
Would
make
like-
the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Any discussion on this one?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So this is now in the public domain. So what is in the public domain? What is it that we can talk about and divulge? And what is it that we can't? Have we entered, is the agreement finished with Mr. Franklin and we're just, finishing up the documents? Or, what can we announce and what can't we announce? I think you know where I'm going here.
Yes, I understand your question, and I was kind of thinking about that myself, but I will defer the question to our CAO. There are still final papers that have to be signed by me and by the CAO to consummate this transaction. So I suppose in theory it hasn't gone through until we did make a purchase of offer and sale. It was accepted. So these are just the final documents, I think. But Michelle, if you would like to comment, maybe you can answer the question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the lawyer that represents the municipality thought it was important that we pass a bylaw, and this is what we've done. But as council knows, and the public does not know it until tonight, is that we've agreed on a price, we've agreed on some terms and some timing, and it's just a matter of all that process to happen. Certainly the location of the property is now public and it can be recognized by the legal description. So you are correct, Councillor Lamb. A large component of this is now public, and municipality can be very proud that that they've purchased this property after many, many years of discussion, and it'll add a benefit to the municipality.
So for the benefit of the people who may be on the call, well, two things. I believe strongly in transparency. So, and I think council does. So the description of this property is the property right next door to the community hall, where the garage was taken down a year or two ago, and it has waterfront. And it's the property right next door to where the new dock went in on Whitestone Lake at the community property last year. So, I'm not going to divulge the price, but should the public not know the price, Michelle? Like, I mean, it's not a secretive document, is it?
It will be in the. And the public can know the price if council is agreeable. This bylaw simply solidifies the fact that the council is entering into an agreement of purchase and sale, and the price is the cost of the property is available through the land registry office, or if council wants to make an announcement about the property and what they paid for it. That's also okay.
Well, I think
Up to council.
if I still have the floor, I feel it's important to divulge that. I think it's good news actually for the community as a whole. So I don't know, Mr. Mayor, do you want, like, I know the price, you know the price. Why don't we tell the public the price?
Well, I don't see any reason not to. I suppose what I thought would happen was that once this motion was passed, we would issue some sort of a, some sort of a, I don't say a press release, but just announce it to,
Sure.
To the municipality and provide some details, make sure everybody understands what the property is. And we're not in a position, I guess, at this stage of the game to talk about exactly what's intended to be done with it or anything. That's, but our goal was to try to, to try to secure the property so that it would provide us with some expansion room on the municipal site. And that has been done. So it's certainly a good news story. But I thought perhaps the best way to do it would be for us to put together some sort of an announcement so that everybody can, including folks who are not on tonight's call, can know about it.
So, but can I know
and
the price. Can I say the price? Is that, or am I out of order?
Well,
Well, I mean, the public, it's here in the public domain. I don't want to be, like people are going to ask, oh, that's great. What'd you pay? Right? And I'm going to say, well, I don't know. Can I tell you? Can I not tell you? Right? Like, I don't think this is a really good news story. We can tell, you can announce the price.
Yeah. Yeah, if the clerk doesn't have any objection, I guess we can tell them what the price is. I'm not.
I have no objection.
It was a
Council's
very, they were very favorable terms, and you can appreciate that we didn't, we managed to negotiate a price based on an appraised value with the owners without them putting it up for public, putting it for sale to the public, which I believe might have fetched a larger price. But the owners were very, Mr. Franklin was I think he thought that that was a good case for the property to become part of the municipal part of the municipal complex. And so he didn't hold us to, he didn't hold our feet to the fire or anything.
No, he didn't. He acted very, very professionally, and the clerk doesn't have any. This is like pulling teeth, for goodness sake.
Okay, yeah,
Can-
I'm sorry. I wasn't
Can I
planning
word
to
out
get
the
to
number or not?
get into the details. Sure, go ahead.
Good. I think it was $102,000, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
103, I believe. Is it
Okay,
right,
good.
Michelle?
I'm out 1,000 anyway. So the public now knows the price and they know the property, and we're gonna, in council highlights or whatever, say we've acquired the property, and that's great. All good news. So thank you. I'm done with that. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Any other, are there any other comments or questions? We still have to approve this motion. Do you want to call the roll for the vote, please, Michelle?
Thank you, Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
All right, I'll just make a little note here to the effect that there will be some public notice of this. Okay, thank you. That takes us to item 13, which is staff reports. The first one is a standard routine report that we are required to do every year on staff remuneration and expenses. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the staff report FIN-2022-03 entitled 2021 Council Remuneration and Expenses for information purposes.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods moves, seconded by
I'll second Councilor McEwen.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this? Is anyone opposed to the report, to receiving the report? Okay, that's carried then. Thank you. Becomes part of the public record. Next item 13.2 is some donation requests. And okay, there's there are a couple of blank spaces in there. If you look at the report that's in your package, but we can come to talk about that in a second. If we could get a motion on the floor first, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN-2022-04 entitled 2022 donation requests, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the following 2022 donations. And there's a table there, which we can talk about in a minute after we get it on the floor. And I'm sorry, I was looking for the second page of that, but doesn't matter. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? To start off.
I'll move,
I'll move.
Councillor Woods.
So I heard Councillor Woods and I heard Councillor Gore Matthews. Is that correct? Mover and seconder?
They're all second.
All right, thank you. Now, the thing that I did want to tell you And sorry about that. I'm trying to find it where this. Oh, well. So much for that. I'm looking for the piece of paper on which I had written the table that was in my original package. Okay, now I see where it is. What I wanted to tell you was that, or draw to your attention, a couple of things. There was an item in the table in the report itself. The first item is the Rotary Club of Prairie Sound request. They did make a delegation, as you know, and last year it was $500. This year it was proposed to be $500. The next one that was on the list in your package was the Prairie Sound Area Community Business and Development Center. And last year they requested and received a grant for $1,100. The reason they were left blank or out of the table in the motion this year is because at the time it was prepared, staff did not have the request, but the request did come in dated February 15th for $1,100, together with a report that they provided, which explains what they did last year. So and unfortunately that did not get that did not come to light until after this was produced. So just so everybody knows, there is a request for $1,100. You will see there was a the next one was the district museum, which was on the list last year. There was also one last year from $500 for the Prairie Sound Chamber of Commerce. I take it we have not received a request from them for this year. The Agricultural Society was there last year, $500 is there this year. That's a sort of a recurring one. The Ardbeg Community Club is also a recurring one. It's back to $3,000. Last year we gave them an extra grant, if you remember, towards their heating fuel. The Louise Woods Bursary at the Prairie Sound High School, again, is there at $500 year after year. There were also graduation gifts that we added, I guess, at the start of the pandemic. So that's $250. There is the Whitestone Lake Citizenship Award, which has been there for a number of years at $50. And last year we made a grant of $500 to the West Prairie Sound Health Center Foundation donation. And I take it there was not I'm not sure what the circumstances of that were, but I take it there was not a specific request for that this year. So the list that you have in the motion there's a little bit shorter. So I wonder if we could just kind of go down and see what people think about these ones. The total last year, just for your information, was actually $10,490. Of which, it was high, but that, keep in mind, that included the extra grant that we made to the Ardbeg Community Club to cover the cost of heating fuel. So that was when we approved that earlier in the year, like March of last year, that $3,000 wasn't there. So it would have been something like $7,490 at this time last year, what we approved. So I will open it up now to Councillor Gorman Matthews.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to submit that we add the Chamber of Commerce donation back in. I know they've sent letters out to the other municipalities. I'm not sure why. We didn't receive one, but we had a meeting last night. Their board did. And I know the letters have gone out. Now, last year, the money, they're actually running, making enough money to cover their expenses. So what they did last year with the donation that we made is they used it to sponsor a new members event. And they used the $500 to buy food vouchers for all the new members to the Chamber of Commerce. And they had an online meeting where all the members were able to go out. They had $20 gift cards to go out and buy dinner. And then they had an online dinner to welcome new members, and they advertised it as sponsored by the municipality of Whitestone. So I would suggest that if we were to make this donation again, it wouldn't go into covering their expenses. They would probably use it again to sponsor a lunch and learn or some such type of event that would also be recognized as sponsored by the municipality of Whitestone. So I would suggest that we put the 500 in.
Thank you. Any comments on that? Can I add it to the list? Any objection to adding it to the list? So what about the Prairie Sound Area Community Business and Development Center? Do you know what this organization does, by the way?
Yes, and we've given this $1,100 for many years, so I
Yeah.
suggest we put it in.
All right. So
At least put it in for our budget purposes.
yeah.
And if we call them and they don't need it, then we'll be under budget by $1,100.
Well, they have asked us for it. I have here this submission. I just
Good.
I just
Then let's put
discovered
it
it
in.
today, but the submission did come in saying, here's what, thank you so much for what you gave us last year. Here's what we did with it. And there's this.
Perfect.
You know, this-
Let's put it in.
and then please give we're asking for the 1,100 again. Right?
Perfect. Let's put it in. The only other comment I have is that when the Rotary Club was out and made the presentation to us, I reminded them that we were doing a nurses station expansion, I think. And that's the sort of project that they give to. So when we send them this 500, let's remind them, and I'm sure we must send a letter out or something. Let's remind them that we have a nurses station and there's a fundraising drive, and maybe they could see fit to contribute to that since we're in the district. So that's just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments about any of these other items on the list or any other?
Mr. Mayor, one comment.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor McKeon.
I just lost connection for a couple minutes there. Not sure if you addressed the bottom one, which was left blank for the West Prairie Sound Health Center Foundation. I think that's a very worthwhile donation. And by adding all the 3 empty blanks, which is going back to basically last year, without the extra 3,000 for hardbag, it comes right back to our budgeted amount. So it sets our budget up pretty good again for $7,500. But I would suggest, or I would support the $500 for the West Prairie Sound Health Center Foundation.
Okay, any other comments about that one? I would too. So I would think we should support that one as well. We have in the past. So that brings what we've added then is we had a total of in the motion that was on the floor, we had a total of 5,300. We have now added $2,100. So 2,100 brings that up to $77,400. So is there any other is there any other comment? Are you okay with that $7,400 with the addition of the 3 items? Any objection? Okay, well, I'm waiting for I'm just gonna flip through and try to find the second page of this motion, which somehow there it is.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I have a
Separated.
question. I don't know
Yeah,
if
go
you could
ahead.
answer it, but the only blank left untouched, I believe, was the West Prairie Sound Health Center Foundation Memoriam. I'm not exactly certain what that is. We had $150 in it last year, and it's the third one down. It's
Yes,
blank this year, so.
I'll ask the clerk to confirm this, but I believe this was a special donation in memoriam. Was it Velma Breer?
Yes, it was in memory of Velma Breer passing.
Yes.
Okay.
It was $150. You're right. So that's what that was.
Okay.
And
So-
I don't think we need to do that one again, but anyway.
No, okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask one more time if there's any objection to approving this motion. If not, those are our donations for 2022. And that brings us then to 13.3. Once again, I'm just trying to make sure we haven't missed anything here. All right, 13.3. This is to let the contract for the expansion of the Whitestone Nurse Practitioner-led clinic.
Mr. Mayor, can I confirm that we voted on 13.2? We have a mover and seconder?
Should it have been a recorded vote?
It's entirely up to you.
The mover was Councillor Woods. The seconder was Councillor Gorham Matthews. And I asked if everyone was in favor of it, and I heard no. I asked if anyone was opposed to it, and I heard nothing. So
Okay,
would
thank
you
you.
prefer that we call a recorded vote?
No, sir. I missed that part of the conversation. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so here's a motion. I'll get a mover and seconder, and then I'm going to ask our CAO to just highlight where we're at. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report admin-2022-06 entitled Whitestone Nurse Practitioner-Led Clinic Expansion Project Tender Results and Contract Award. And whereas tenders have been called for the expansion and renovation of the Whitestone Nurse Practitioner-Led Clinic Expansion Project, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby award tender 2022-01 Whitestone Nursing Station Expansion to W.S. Morgan Construction Limited in the amount of $726,600 plus HST, and that the mayor and CAO clerk be authorized to execute all necessary contact documents. Is there a mover and seconder?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by
I'll second Councillor Woods.
Okay. Do you want to give us some highlights, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly do. This is exciting. Well, this project has been talked about for well over a year. Is now close at hand. As you can read from the report, what challenged us when we received the two bids was that there was a huge difference between the two of them, and and when I say we, I'm talking about architect Brenda Ryan. You can see one bid, aside from the provisional item, one came in at $959,400, one came in at $697,600. So there's a $250,000 difference. And often in projects like this, you expect 20, 30, 40, even 50,000 difference, not 250. So a fair bit of work was done to establish whether, firstly, if the high bid had overbid, did they include items that weren't on the drawings or weren't part of the specifications? And more importantly, did the low bid miss significant components? And the answer is we believe the low bid did not miss significant components, although that's why you build in contingency, because sometimes you're doing construction and there's things you didn't anticipate. What we did find is the high bid did include components that weren't specifically on the drawings or in the specifications. They simply made some assumptions that certain things would need to be done. And that created the disparity in the cost. And there's often other factors as well, where the person who came with the high bid may be very, very busy and is just bidding as a courtesy, and they may or may not want the job. And of course, I don't speak for them. After it was all said and done, we are comfortable with WS Morgan Construction. They're a reputable company. They're a local company. They've done multi-million-dollar projects recently in Aurelia and other places. So they are the recommended bid. The one provisional item in the document was the steel roofing, and that was discussed amongst the committee members a number of times. So I included it in the tender award, but not necessarily. I know Councillor McEwen has some concerns about steel roofing, but other than that, you can see that there's some very generous donations that have come forward to help build this complex, and the West Prairie Sound Health Centre Foundation will be able to provide the furniture and the equipment for this project. So I'm comfortable recommending Morgan Construction. We also have to put a new septic system in. The one that that the community center, that the nursing station is connected to right now is at the back of the liquor store, and it's small and it's old, and there's special calculations that you do for a health type commercial building that requires us to build a new septic system. We looked at possibly connecting it to the septic system behind the office, but there's some technical reasons why that won't work. So we're in the process of getting a septic approval, and the building permit can't be issued until the septic approval has been issued, but we think we're in line for a start in early May on this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, good work by everyone involved here. This is a much needed project within Whitestone. It's phenomenal work in terms of those people that wrote for the grants, for instance, that we got. To think that we're going to get this kind of the expansion to our nurses station for what looks like $45,000 is incredible to the cost of the taxpayers in Whitestone. When you consider that there's an $80,000 contingency, if we don't use that contingency, which we may or may not, the actual cost of Whitestone may be nothing. According to these figures. So again, I compliment everyone. The I just have a question about the fundraising. The anonymous donor is fantastic at 120, and I know he was matching donations. Was he matching donations up to 120? For in other words, is there more fundraising carrying on right now? Could that 90 become 120, or how does that work? So I have that question. And then the only other comment that I have on this is, as we went through this, and what I hear in the community more than any other issue is support for this project. But I've heard from many people that they call, wanting an appointment, and if they're working, they can't get appointments. The hours are not conducive to someone who's working, or they call and they say, well, there's an appointment a week Wednesday, which doesn't do a lot of help for some people. So I only hope that once we finish all this, and that there's some assurances, not assurances, but that we'll be in a more comfortable position to, say, expand hours and serve the population greater than we're doing right now. So again, that's a side issue, but I would like the CAO or someone to comment on the community fundraising and the anonymous donor and how that works. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Originally, the anonymous donor pledged 90,000, and that's would be matching funds. He then later came forward and offered an additional 30,000, not matching funds, just a donation. So the community fundraising is moving towards the 90,000. I believe they're as of this week, they're somewhere in around the high 50s, early low $60,000 mark. So they still have another approximately 30,000 to go, and they have a number of opportunities and efforts and raffles and things that they're working on. They're pretty confident they're going to reach their 90,000. So that's how that fundraising component is going to work.
Thank you.
But interestingly enough, we've already received the 120,000. So the anonymous donor is very confident that the community is going to meet that $90,000 mark.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, please.
I appreciate Councillor Lamb's comment too on the appointment situation, and that's something that's certainly front and foremost with the committee. And in fact, we have a second nurse practitioner who is on staff right now. She just got fully qualified a month or so ago. So there is attempts to staff it more specific to the needs. The call isn't necessarily our own little nurse practitioner-led clinic that sets the times and the schedules and specifically what is offered. It's through the West Prairie Sound Health Center. So we're typical of the other health centers. We're one of 6 of the nurse practitioner-led clinics out there. So there's quite a complicated formula, and they're working to serve the best they can in that respect. Madam CAO mentioned the steel roofing. I know we talked about it at some length with the library and ended up going back to just conventional roof. The present nursing station has a new roof as of a couple of years ago. So I think we're only looking at putting a roof on the new addition. So I would suggest that we eliminate or take out most of the $29,000 on the steel roof part of it. And that in essence would assist the bottom line too, whether it be somewhat supportive for fundraising and or for our local Whitestone contribution on the bottom line. So I think we're in just an amazing shape and position to start this project. And as Councillor Lamb mentioned, we're so appreciative of the grants our folks and everyone has done to bring in the grants. The one that's being announced this week, $500,000, the NOHFC grant. We received an ISIP grant of $100,000. McKellar's supporting us at $30,000 over each of the next 2 years, last year and this year. So we've just done an amazing, had an amazing job done by our folks out there, including staff. So anyway, my only main comment and change would be a suggestion of the steel roof, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know, that kind of makes sense to me, I'd have to say, but we can, I guess we can note that we are, the motion that we have on the floor is to approve the awarding of the tender. There will be, I think it's fair to say there will be some modifications as the work progresses, as normally happens with a project like this, where you run into things that you didn't anticipate, or I don't know if anyone feels strongly that the steel roof should be left in. I guess we could hear from them now. It's kind of one of those things where I mean, I guess it's possible to have two different roofs on the old part and the new part of the building and design a proper interface. But normally speaking, I would think we would just, we would match them for the sake of, for no other reason, for the sake of appearance. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yeah, I would leave the decision on the steel roof up to the contractors. We've got plenty of money to complete this project, so I don't think we want to start whittling it down now before we've even begun. My only comment is, have we heard any plan of, will the nurse practitioners still be practicing during the renovation, or are we losing the services of the practitioners during the time of the renovation, or do we know this yet?
Madam CAO.
Yeah, if I may, I'll answer the first question first and then go back to the roof, or the last question first. We have talked about this extensively, those of us that have been organizing this project. And typically what happens is once you award the contract, you have a conversation with the contractors. That said, I expect there is going to probably be a week where we're going to do flooring, we're going to do baseboard. There's going to be some things within the old section that are being upgraded, that are included, a new desk. There's going to be some millwork done. So how we manage that with the contractor, it's very possible that there's going to be a loss of service or a pause in service, I would say, for a week or so. Both of the contractors that have bid are well aware that it's a health center and it's an important component of the community. But the reality is you can't be doing flooring and having customers in there. It's difficult to do it on the weekends, and it adds cost to the project. So this is something that we will negotiate with Morgan Construction, and it will be known well in advance when the disruption of service will be. So I can't promise no disruption, but we'll minimize it. And if I could go back to the roof, the intention was not, if I indicated this, I misspoke. The intention was not that the new section gets a steel roof and the old section gets a shingled roof. It would be a complete steel roof for the whole nursing station. But that said, my thought, being the project manager, is all of the buildings in what I call the Dunchurch compound are shingled roofs. I think the steel roof would look spectacular, for sure. We've all seen them on buildings, but I don't see any reason why it needs to be included in this project. And there has always been an issue of ice sliding and safety, and I think that's one of the reasons it was eliminated from the nursing station. So my recommendation actually after having given some thought and spoken to some people, is that we award the 697,600 without the steel roofing. And it certainly diminishes the amount that we have to pay outright, but I have no doubt that we're going to be using a component of the contingency. But when we award a contract, we don't award the contingency amount because it's entirely up to the municipality how every cent of that gets spent. So I hope that explains the roofing situation from my perspective.
So are you suggesting that we modify the motion that is in front of us to reduce the 726.6 to whatever you just said?
Yes, if you look on page 2 of the report, the bid amount was 697,600. That's the bid base amount. And the steel roofing was an additional 29,000. So I'm recommending that we award the base bid amount of 697,600.
Okay, do the mover and seconder have any problems with doing that?
I don't.
So that would be 697,600. Councillor Woods?
I don't have a problem with removing it if that's what everyone feels. I just want one little comment that steel roof would outlast most of us that sit on council.
Well, there's no doubt that
It's a true story.
There's no doubt that you're correct. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what kind of a steel roof are they talking about? I mean, there's a lot of different steel roofs around.
Thank you. I do not have the specifications in front of me.
But it's not something like it's not like it's something like a Gerard or a Decra. It's a steel tile like the guys who are down by the 400 off the 400 down south of Barrie.
It's
That
steel
kind of a,
sheet. Yeah, it's steel sheet roofing with a profile, commercial grade.
yeah,
Mr. Mayor, could I say one quick thing about it?
sure.
And I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that we should just stick with it, but if it's a matter of people being afraid that the snow load's going to slide off of the steel roof with roof breaks, that normally does not happen. A properly installed steel roof with proper roof breaks. Right, it stops the snow from sliding off, and it does. It lasts a lot longer. It really does, especially in our climate. Shingles don't last as long as the label says up here. Right, that's a fact of life. But I'm okay if we want to leave it out. No problem. I'm not going to argue. I just wanted to give everyone that little tidbit.
Well, it's I mean, I guess it's a decision that council needs to make. I mean, we can go with a there are better
Can I
roofs.
comment?
Go ahead.
I don't disagree that the longevity is on a steel roof, outlasting a shingle roof. It's just that I went through experiences years ago on the school board, and because of liability and various issues that happen at certain times with steel roofs, and you have to have the right location for the ice to come down if it ever does come down. And ice buildup was a major issue with some of the older style buildings being retrofitted. And we're looking at retrofitting half of this building, or half of what would be under the roof here. I think I would go with, in this instance, keep all the municipality roofs shingle. And I'd go with a suggestion from our CIO. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess we'll try it with the reduced number and see if are there any other comments before I ask the CIO or the clerk to call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know enough about roofs, all I know is all the roofs in Dunchurch that I look at are not steel roof, right? And aesthetically, as you go into the village, will this add to the look or detract from it? Longevity aside, I don't know. We bid it with a steel roof, and I don't feel I'm competent enough to voice an opinion whether we should have it or not. I would suggest what we do is that we approve it with the 29,000 in there, and then I don't know, the CAO can make the decision in concert with the contractor and FAD engineering. I guess I don't know enough about it, so I don't know. My sense would be to vote for it based on what was given to us. But if the CAO thinks we should not put it in and is affirmative of that, then let's vote on the lower number. Thank you.
That is my opinion. However, or through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. However, I commit to having further discussions with the architect. She's away on spring break this week. And just having more of a conversation about the steel roof and bringing that information back to council if I felt it was necessary to revisit the conversation.
Mr. Mayor, just one additional little comment.
Okay, go
It
ahead.
was mentioned our committee had talked about steel roofs. I don't recall steel roof being discussed to any extent. I'm sure it was mentioned possibly, but I think it must have come as a possible addition from FAD Engineering. I'm not sure where it came from. I was totally surprised to see it in the quotation at all. So it's just a comment from me. Thank you.
Can you comment, Michelle, where that came from?
I thought it came from the committee, but there was a number of meetings with nursing station folks that I wasn't part of, so I can't really say one way or the other, to be honest with you. But I as I said, I commit to finding out the source of that request and just a little bit more information about the steel roof.
Well, all right. Would you, I'll just ask one more time. Do we have the number? I crossed out 726,600 and placed it with 697,600. Would you rather have the 726,600 in there as freeboard and we work it out later, or what do you think is the best strategy here?
For the purpose of awarding the contract,
You'd rather deal with it as an extra?
I'd rather deal with it as an extra, to be honest with you. So there's no misunderstanding on the contractor's part, because he could go out and start ordering steel roofing before we had a chance to deal with anything.
Okay, yeah. And there are fair lead. My recent experience was that there are some fairly long lead times on certain still on certain profiles of steel roof. It's not, so they might very well do that. They might say, oh my gosh, we gotta although they're several months away from being ready to put a roof on, but still, I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the CAO to call the roll with the 697,600 in there.
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. A point of order, Madam CEO Clerk, are we at curfew? I guess we are. Is that
We are
correct?
indeed. We need to extend the meeting by half an hour to continue.
Would someone wish like to move that. Trying to find the paper here, but that the council hereby continues its meeting past the allotted time of 3.5 hours for an additional 1/2 hour.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
okay, I heard Councillor Gorman Matthews. I'm assuming everybody's okay with that. All right, thank you. So business matters, number 14. Mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby appoints Janice Bray as alternate Community Emergency Management Coordinator to replace Michelle Hendry. The main CEMC is Kathy Whitman. And we're not proposing to change that appointment, but to replace Michelle with Janice Bray. They get a mover and seconder for that, please.
I'll move. Councillor Woods.
Councilor moves, who seconds?
I'll second
second.
Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen. Any discussion?
Why?
Yeah, I can.
Michelle,
speak
do you
to
want
that.
to answer that?
Yeah, yes, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When last year, when we were doing the emergency management plan, we realized that several people had 2 jobs. I'm obviously the CEO and part of the emergency management group if there's ever an emergency. And I'm also the alternate CEMC. Kathy herself is the CEMC, but she's also the Community Information Officer. So we've provided that duty to Eva at the library, or will be offering that to her. She's a good communication person. And Kathy talked to Janice. Janice is much more knowledgeable about emergency management than I am. And I was really filling in. Well, I filled in for almost 4 years. And it's really just an alignment of finding the best people for the right job. And Janice Bray is now retired from her job at DSAB and has agreed to take this on. So I'm happy to hand it over to her, and she'll work with Kathy. And both of those positions report to me, but loosely. They know what they're doing, and it's just a matter of us meeting up a few times a year and having a discussion on emergency management. So that's the reason, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Are you ready for the question? Is anyone opposed to this motion, this appointment? Okay, thank you. No, item 14.4 was put there in consideration of the recent changes in provincial policy. Which the effect of which, as I'm sure you understand, are to remove most but not all requirements for vaccination and or masking and or physical distancing, even in various kinds of group settings.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I think we missed 14.2 and 3.
Well, I'm sorry. Let me see what happened here.
(14.2) being a conversation about scheduling the OPA2 meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, see, I apologize. I am working off things that have resolutions attached to them. And so I wasn't looking at the other piece of paper, which has the topics that don't have any, so I apologize. Okay, let's do 14.2. Thank you. Scheduling, the question simply was, when do we want to have the I think we agreed the last time around that we were going to have a special meeting to deal with those official plan amendments and not anything else on the agenda. So when would you like to do that? Perhaps we should set a date so that we can give lots of notice to people. We still are, as you know, from time to time getting correspondence from different people who have views on the subject, but I think what we need to do is go out to let the public know when a meeting will be held to try and wrap it all up. And that would include the discussion that was supposed to take place back in February. Any comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I'm a bit confused. We've this has been going on for a long time. And we had public consultation that we heard from lots and lots of people. So when you say we'll have another meeting, and I know we need to, and a separate meeting, is this again to go back so everybody can tell us everything they told us months ago? I mean, we've had information on this on both sides of the story from everyone. So a special meeting to do what? Rehash it again and then have a vote? Or is it, if it's just simply a discussion at council with John Jackson and a decision being made, then if that's what we're going to do, then I don't see the need for a special meeting. But if we're going to open it up where everyone gets to comment, then maybe we do. So can someone answer, can you or Michelle answer that question for me?
Well, we did. If you think back to the February meeting, we did have on the agenda an opportunity, and it was in committee of the whole, so there was an opportunity for people to speak. They did not get that opportunity to speak. And so we made a commitment to them that we would, some of them sat through the meeting thinking. There were a fair number of people on the call who, as I recall, who were there for the purpose of speaking to that, and they didn't get a chance. So
okay, well then you need a special.
So I think I kind of feel like we made a commitment to them that we would
Okay.
do that. Now, obviously, we would hope that they don't simply rehash stuff that they've written in, because we have responded to many of the things that people have written in. And in fact, some of the folks came back to us and said, having looked at the proposal that was in front of that meeting that never really got discussed, they said, oh yeah, I'm satisfied with that now. So we would again be providing them with the latest suggestions of how to address the concerns that were raised originally, and allowing for some discussion. And then hopefully council would make a decision we would come out of committee of the whole and council would make a decision. It's, as I understand it, it's not a public meeting. Oh no, I'm gonna defer to the clerk here. Is it a public meeting we're talking about, or is it just are we required to have another public meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, it's not a public meeting as defined by the Planning Act. So that meeting happened, public meeting happened. This was a follow-up meeting because the municipality asked John Jackson to consolidate all the comments, and which he did, there was a report on February 15th that really didn't get discussed, and an additional opportunity for the community to speak to the issue, but only in committee of the whole, not in a public meeting as defined by the Planning Act. So I agree. There was numerous people on that call whose intention was to speak to the OPA too, and we just ran out of time, as you know.
Okay, so that's what that's what we're trying to do, is to just get a meeting where we can deal with this particular subject. And I'm not even sure it's necessarily going to be an extremely long meeting or anything. It's just we'll,
Well, let's
We
pick
know
a
that-
date before we run out of time tonight.
yeah, that's the object of the exercise. Do you have a date to suggest, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a date. I think council, I don't know if they want to get closer to the summer months or just move this along. We can pick a date that's in between council meetings. We're moving into 2 meetings a month starting in April, so I can help out with those dates if you like. It's just we want to actually give notice as if it was a public meeting, to be honest with you, because one of the things that people complain about is that they're not given adequate notice. So we want to give at least 20 days and maybe 30. So, you know, make it a month or so out. Give folks the opportunity. They can still submit, they can resubmit, so that they can still have their voices heard. But that would be the only caveat I would suggest, is that give our staff some time to give notice to the lake associations as we have in the past, and to the road associations who are agreeable to receiving this kind of information.
Can I ask, when do we anticipate approving the final approval of the budget? Is that at a meeting in April?
Well, we're obviously meeting next week. I think if you ask Barb, and she is on the line, we are pretty close based on all the conversations that council had with us in February. She still is somewhat unsure of the surplus, but is closing in on that number. So it entirely depends on council's discussion on March 27th, but staff could very well be given notice to give notice to the public of the passing of the budget for
What, and what is the notice period for that notice?
20 days.
So it might be late April, am I guessing? Somewhere in there?
Yes, if I say I'm optimistic about March 22nd being given direction, then in order to match the 20 days, we would be into middle of, well, that wouldn't be 20 days. Yeah, it would be. It could very well pass the budget on April 19th, subject to council direction.
Well, I guess why I'm asking is, would you want to try to do the budget first and then do this afterwards, or you don't see the need for any more special budget meetings after February 22nd? After March 22nd, I'm sorry.
I'm cautiously optimistic about that. As I said, I think the budget is in pretty good shape based on some refinements that we've made, and you'll see that report within the next couple of days. So yes, I'm optimistic that council will be able to pass a budget. And maybe it does make sense to get the budget out of the way first. I don't anticipate another special meeting. Really, if another meeting is required to discuss the budget, I believe we can do it as part of our regular meeting, because I don't think the discussions will be extensive unless there's significant project changes.
Well, okay, I'm just looking to see if there's something sort of towards the end of April or early May, but our council meetings May 3rd and May 17th. But we could try to have the meeting somewhere in that time frame.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, here's the issue I foresee, and again, we're running out of time here. But, you know, if we're at the end of April or into early May, I think at some point, maybe not tonight, we have to have a discussion as to when we're going to meet in person again. And obviously, with respect to COVID restrictions coming off, many councils are now meeting in person. Now, we may choose to or not. But the problem becomes there are a lot of people who are interested in this subject who call in or are on Zoom. So if we decide to move indoors to the community center in whenever, May, then we better make sure that we can do it in person and by Zoom. And if we're not, then we should be doing this meeting by Zoom, earlier than later. And I think you know where I'm coming from here, right? We don't have proper internet in Dunchurch, and a lot of people are not able to come up and be indoors, in late April or early May. So anyway, I think we should do it. We should tell everyone, but I think we should do it earlier than later. But that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Well,
Mayor.
I'm
comment
assuming
on
it's
that.
a Zoom meeting, by the way. I don't think we're going to get back inside that quickly for the reasons you mentioned, but
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
my
McEwen.
comment is similar to Councillor Lamb, and that would be maybe we hold it the second week, say in April or sometime approximately. And figuring on Zoom meetings, and then after that, maybe we're planning for community center meetings again. I don't know. If we went the week of the 11th of April, that would give about a month almost to set this meeting up.
okay. I say you'd like to have it sooner rather than later. Does
Well,
a date like the 12th work for?
Whatever works out with staff. Thank you.
Okay, can we leave that? Yeah, I'm hearing April 12th, maybe, or somewhere in that week. Can we? Is that enough direction, Madam CAO?
Yes, I'm just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at my calendar to make sure we have ample time to send out the notices. I believe there is. I'll check with our planning assistant so we can aim for Tuesday, April 12th. And I quite agree with Councillor Lamb. This needs to be a Zoom meeting. And
Yeah.
I think the way our procedure bylaw has been amended, we can continue to have Zoom meetings under special circumstances such as this, where you will have people that want to join who are not in the community at the time of the meeting, but have special interest in it. You can have regular council meetings at the community center at some point of your choosing, but still intermixed with that, on occasion you can have Zoom meetings whereby you're going to have a lot more people that want to attend and will attend if in fact it's virtual. So that said, I'll make a note of April 12th, and we'll let the public know. Thank you.
Okay, 14.3 was the staff memo on the accounts payable process. And then I don't see a resolution for it. Did I miss that?
Yep. Yeah, I guess there should have been, shouldn't there? So let me just go over with this quickly. The memo basically outlines how we do our accounts payable process. So council is actually approving accounts that have already been paid, either by check. And for those of you that sign checks from time to time, there's very few checks. We're moving well beyond the 70% right now into electronic funds transfer. So that's just no check. The accounts get approved by a senior staff member, and I noted who the senior staff members who have signing authority are here, follow the procurement process. So my recommendation is that it's just a shift in how we report accounts payable. You'll still see all the accounts payable, but you won't be approving them any further because they're already paid. And I'm not seeing any advantage as to why salaries get reported. Again, there's no need to approve salaries because council approves them through the budget process. And I think it's just changing up protocols that have been in place for some time, and we've just been doing what we've always done for many years for perhaps the wrong reason. So I'm happy just to simply take direction from council that they're agreeable that the next council meeting you will see the resolution look just a little bit differently, but I assure you you'll still see the accounts payable and you'll still get quarterly reports on how money is being spent. And that was the intent of the memo.
So any comments about this? We would still have to report on the agenda of council. Is that correct? It's just wouldn't be a motion to approve, it'd be a motion to receive. Is that what you're talking
That's
about?
right. And my research with other municipalities, that's where they're moving, especially with electronic funds transfer, and some things are paid through Visa, and some things are paid online like Bell and Hydro. So those accounts just get paid as they come in just to move the process forward. So you're right. It'll be a receipt for information going forward.
Anybody have any comments? Okay, so hearing none, I will assume that,
Yeah, just for a second.
Yeah.
So there's no fear here that we pay something and then it comes to council and we say, that's right, wrong, check into that. Oh, we shouldn't have done that. And there's been something occur that we wouldn't get our money back. You're saying, I guess you'd go back and say, we shouldn't have paid that. We want our money back, or, am I getting that right, or what?
Well, I'm through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council. I'm extremely confident that the staff that make the purchases, that have the approval to make these purchases, follow the procurement policy, confirm that a purchase is received or the service provided that we're being billed for has been given to us, and they in turn approve the invoice based on the purchase that was made. And all of the invoices have to be approved and signed off on and coded. So yeah, I am confident that there's enough internal controls in place that we are protecting the monies of the municipality and protecting council from anything, any expenses that were not worthy of being paid for.
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you. Getting then to COVID-19 protocols, and I'm going to try to make this quick because once again, we're really running out of time. The situation is simply this: the government of Ontario has basically opened things wide up, and I think obviously there's some, if you follow the media, there's some questioning as to whether they're rushing things a little bit. But I guess the question really boils down to, do we want to do anything different in Whitestone? And I have had some discussions with a couple of different groups about this, about just to see sort of what people think. And I would suggest to you that we have two types of activities. We have activities, and I'll use WalkFit as an example. WalkFit has resumed in the community center indoors. It's 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. The people who are participating in it are all vaccinated, and they all come wearing masks, and they all physically distance. That's the information I have. Similarly, we have a pickleball group that started up on Thursday mornings, and at least one session of that, I dropped in to see how they were doing, and those people are all in the same category. They're all masked and so on. So I guess the question is, if we were to say, well, there aren't any rules anymore, And we, by the way, we have the ability to set rules. We don't have to do, we're not bound by what the province says. And as you know, any group that decides that they're going to mask or whatever, or they're going to require people to be vaccinated or whatever to come into their thing, they can still do it. It's just unless you're a public school or whatever. So I sort of feel that maybe what we should do is we should, out of, in a sense of fairness to people, say, look, when an activity is organized and publicized, that we would let people know this is an activity that the folks who are participating are going to need to be, are going to need to follow these rules. And we have others, like, for example, our Pee-wee's group, which is like a mums and tots. A fair number of those, I would say the majority of the mums who are participating in that are not vaccinated. And of course, their kids aren't vaccinated because they're very young. And so, what we would do in that case is not say, well, sorry, you have to be vaccinated, but say, well, or you have to wear a mask, but you come knowing that there is no such requirement, no such screening. So you are potentially going to be exposed to people who are not wearing masks. If you come, you're going to be exposed to people who are not wearing masks and so on. And as long as everybody knows, they can make a decision as to whether they're comfortable or not going to that event. In the same way that all of us can choose whether we want to ride onto subway in Toronto or we want to take an airplane to Curacao or whatever it is, depending on what, or whether we want to go to a performance at the Stratford Festival where the people are sitting in alternate seats and are masked and have been pre-screened, or one where nobody's masked and screened. Because they have both, right? So that's what we were trying to do, was to just get a sense of what folks thought. Should we, how we should handle this general opening up, so that we don't run into the situation where we get people are uncertain as to what to expect when they come out to something that's advertised. Any comments? And Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Sure. So this wasn't what I thought this was going to be about, but I don't think anybody in our community wants to get into a situation where we're screening people outside of what's been recommended by the health unit or the province. I can't think of anybody that wants to go to an event that we're going to be overstepping and asking people for their vaccination status and stuff. I would never support that as a community. I think what we need to move into is a situation where you ask yourself, does the benefit of me attending X program or Y situation outweigh the risk of being around someone that I could catch something from? And it doesn't necessarily be COVID, it could be the flu or anything. So I don't think we should be imposing anything other than what is happening with the rest of the province. In my opinion, I won't support it.
But if you have it into a group of people who are doing some activity and they all are and they are all wearing masks and that sort of thing, and then people start showing up and say, well, I'm not wearing a mask. What's going to happen, I think, is those people are going to say, well, I don't feel comfortable coming out anymore. So then we end up having to cancel the event. Or I'm talking about something like Walk Fit. which can be done safely, but people, that's the comfort level that the people who are doing it have. I'm not sure. You're saying you're saying no, there's no rules anymore. So you just let it, I'm not sure that we're making that supports us trying to have activities for
Well,
everybody.
Mr. Mayor,
We really have two different groups in the community as I see it. We have folks who tend to be older. They tend to be fairly cautious about this kind of thing and not risk takers. And then you have people who, maybe haven't cared from the very beginning or haven't been concerned about these things and just want to get rid of the mask. Believe me, I'd like to get rid of the mask. It's a nuisance, fogs my glasses and all this other thing, but still, I'm going to wear it out of respect for other people when I go into a group where I know that's their expectation, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're over time by 10 or 15 minutes, but having said that, like Councillor Gore Matthews said, I didn't expect we were having this kind of discussion, but having said that, I agree with what she says. If you're suggesting that we set up special rules, and maybe I've misunderstood you, but, to say, well, if you're going to go to WalkFit, you've got to wear a mask. Or you're not welcome at WalkFit. This is going to go on. There's going to be people wearing masks on and on and on, and people that aren't going to do it. And that's just part of society. And again, I think we take our direction from the health board, from the province. I don't think I feel I'm ably qualified to start making these kinds of decisions within the community and for people in the community. So, if people don't feel comfortable coming out because of masks or no masks, then they have to make that decision. We're moving into I think a new realm. So all I'm saying is I agree with Councillor Gore Matthews. I'm not going to start to make decisions about what we're going to do. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe it's too late. We're out of curfew, and maybe it needs to come back for further discussion. I don't know, but what you're suggesting on the surface doesn't appeal to me. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think, we don't have, we don't have a lot of time. I wanted to raise the issue in case people were looking for some other kind of guidance from us. And I don't think there's been some discussion about it, but I don't think anybody's necessarily pounding at our door. It's just that before our next meeting, all these new rules will be in place. And anyway, never mind. I think
Mr. Mayor, just
we
one
don't
quick-
have a motion on the floor, so I think we should probably just
Can I have just a quick comment?
yeah, sure.
I have to agree with councillors. I think we have to follow the ministry guidelines best we can. I know people in WalkFit, I know people who play pickleball, and I haven't heard anything contrary to they're objectionable or otherwise at these events. Is there something we're missing? I don't know, but rules are going to change real fast, I think, in the next couple of weeks. And I think there's going to be a movement, as in the schools and other places. So anyway, I don't see
Well,
it
we could
setting
just,
specific
we
rules.
could just play it by ear. I'm not, it's not
Yeah.
burning a hole in my pocket or anything. I was just concerned that maybe something we want to think about. Okay. We're pretty much out of time. Is there anything in correspondence that is burning that needs to be talked about? I don't.
I'm good.
Are you okay to just receive it then?
Yeah.
Let's see where it is. Whereas council municipality has received the correspondence items as listed on page 6. Now therefore be it resolved that council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion or action, and that's none. So would somebody like to move that? Second it.
I'll move it.
I'll move, Counselor. I'll second
Okay.
Counselor Woods.
Councillor Wood seconds, Councillor Lamb moves. Everybody okay with that? Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll draw a line through this particular page here. All right, next. Are there any councillor items?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'll be real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't know if any of the rest of council has, but I had the opportunity to go and look at the Ardbeg Community Club. And I just wanted to let everyone know the amount of work that people in the community and the companies that donated materials, and they have done one amazing job of the interior remodel of that community center. And I know when anyone walks into that building, you're going to be stunned. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone in the community and every company that donated towards all the renovations there. I know we gave them some extra money. We should all be praising all of those people that took part in that. I think it's an amazing thing that they've accomplished there. They still have more work to do, and they're not done. Troy Burgess, she's got a heck of a lot of drive. The rest of the people there got a tremendous amount of drive, and I think they should all be commended for their efforts out at the Ardbeg Community Club.
Okay,
Troy
thank,
particularly is beautiful, wonderful, just wonderful.
well, thank you very much, Councillor Woods. That's very helpful to hear about that. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Any other councillor items?
Yeah.
Whoops. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just very quickly, I do want to put on the agenda in, maybe the next meeting or whatever. I do think we have to have a discussion on when we're going to move back into session in the community hall, not to be debated tonight, but at least as a subject matter so that we can discuss it and arrive at when we're going to be in-person meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll make a note of that.
Just real quickly, Mr. Mayor. I've had a couple of concerned citizens speak to me about what we talked about around the speed notice signs that the community is putting up, including McKellar, Prairie Sound and such. And there is a growing concern about speed in certain locations. I hear it from Farley's Road, and I hear it from certainly 520 and going into Dunchurch from both ends and such. So I'd counsel just to consider that as an item for budget purposes. They're about $5,000 per unit. I know that aren't in the budget currently, but just highlighting that as a reminder that we did talk about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we did. We still have an action item. Staff has an action item to follow up with that. Anything else? Do we have any members of the public left? We do have a couple, I guess. Are there any questions that can't wait to another meeting? Because we're anything anybody is dying to raise? Sounds like not. So can I ask for a mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Councilor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councilor Gorham Matthews. Okay, any opposition? Hopefully not. And that brings us to adjournment.
I'll move.
Councilor Lamb moves, seconded by
I'll second. Councilor Woods.
Councilor Woods. That this meeting will be adjourned at 9:46 p.m. until the special council meeting of Tuesday, March 22nd at 2 p.m. or at the call of the chair. And I'm assuming everybody's in favor of that. Thank you very much for your patience.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.